the design of new living spaces out to the community. This afternoon, and I am happy to speak to you all and to share this idea in terms of coming up. This is one model that can be used, because the whole idea behind this is, if there have been interventions over the past 30 years or so, and that intervention is not working, a new model is needed. And that the current model might not work because the problem overwhelms the solution. There are too many people migrating from the rural to the urban areas, and there are not enough dollars to address the issue of slums in the urban areas. I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you very much, dear Professor. It was not only a welcome speech, but even, you know, in my opinion, a very interesting argument exactly regarding the real problem of all the territorial Africa, all the territories in Africa, you know, which is this dilemma between urban and rural, and especially the problems related to these imbalances that we are suffering in our territories. Thank you very much. I would like, in any case, to refer that we are here in the 6th edition of the International Conference of Contemporary Affairs in Architecture and Urbanism, and because of this 6th edition, it would be nice to refer that it is a long story, starting, as I told you, 6 years ago. During these 6 years, it was always the high energy from Professors Huras and Rosanek, which are the alma mater of all this adventure, and I was very, very, very happy and proud to share these adventures during all these years. I would like to remark some of these characteristics of this event, for those that they are not familiar with this interesting event. We are now, at this moment, 323 contributions from different scientific papers coming from all over the planet. But especially, I would like to highlight this point, the global scale, as well as the initiative being coming from a small university in the south of Turkey, which is Turkey, sorry, because this is the real name now, and which is Alanya University. And at the same time, I would like to highlight the capacities of this event to easy the possibilities for the publications processes to so many contributors in a very transparent and agile, I would say, a way. But especially the fourth topic I would like to underline today is the capacity of and the impact of this initiative in developing countries, supporting the access to the global channels for so many institutional and individual efforts. The importance of this session, which is a special session, as I have been talking before, is based on 3 branches units that we are now working in parallel. The first one is, of course, Istanbul, from where the main sessions are done, but there are another 2 parallel sessions, one of them from the UAV, which is the School or Faculty of Architecture in Venice, in Italy, as well as International University of East Africa. This is the point where we are. So it's a kind of balance between an old institution, very important institution in Europe, as I am talking about a UAV, with almost 100 years existence, as well as us as a young university. It's a kind of, in this case, we can highlight that this event, the International Conference of affairs of architecture and urbanism is doing a kind of bridge between these continents, a kind of bridge between these two universities. I would like to highlight in this case even that we selected these two topics, slums and transportation, mobilities in general, because we think that they are able to be important topics, both of them together, as a kind of reflection and to update, I will say, some contributions from different countries in Africa, and in the end they are probably one of the most identity signals for doing that. I would not like to prolong and to extend more, but I would like to give the floor now to Professor Abdul Salam Shema, who is the presenter of this first approach. Thank you very much, and please, Professor.
This is on the desktop.
No, it's here open. Is this one right?
Yes. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for attending this. I'm actually standing here very proud to tell you that the first time I joined this conference was in 2018. I joined as when I was a PhD student in Cyprus. Now I'm standing here as a presenter going to introduce the main topic that we are dealing with, which is the mobility, slums or mobility in Africa. These are the two highlighted topics that are very relevant to Africa, or not only Africa, to most of the developing countries. So this is very important. And I still remember the 2018 when we did the first one. It was a very interesting experience. Now I'm standing here with you going through the process. Last year I attended the conference, presented one paper last year as a presenter, also as a moderator of one of the sessions. And today I'm going to introduce this topic that we are going to highlight. Well, before I start, my name is Abdusalam Shema, and I'm now a senior lecturer here in the Department of Architecture at International University of East Africa. The topic that I want to highlight, I'm not going to take up much of your time because you are going to see a lot of proposals that we have about slums today, and tomorrow is going to be about mobility. I have one paper here which will be presented later during the session. It's with one of my master's students back in Cyprus, so he will present the article with you. Now, back to this general presentation, which is about slums in Africa. So, what are slums? We know about it, we have seen it, some of us have experienced it. Last couple of days we started with a workshop about this issue. We got to go there, experience it. Before we went there, we had an opportunity to discuss about it in the workshop. We know that slums, they have many names. They can be as informal settlements, some call them shanty towns. Regardless, these are the names that we attach to one phenomenon which is very hard to deal with. We have so many proposals over the last couple of years, or over the last decade about slums. We approach it from top down, bottom up approaches. All of these approaches turn out to be ineffective. Well, there are reasons for that. Now, what are slums? Slums are densely populated areas. This is one of the basic characteristics of slums, because we are going to later, I'm going to highlight two major causes of slums, which is overpopulation. So these areas have their own unique problems: inadequate housing, limited access to basic services, poverty, and social exclusion. These are the highlighted issues. Then this is the general definition. What is the definition provided by the United Nations? So United Nations Human Settlement Program, UN Habitat, they also come up with their definition, which is slums are areas with lack of basic social amenities, which is the sanitation. We went there last couple of days. You have seen how some part of it are smelling. So the pollution is not only land pollution, there is also air pollution, there is also water pollution. We have experienced all this when we went to the slum here in Chiwampe. So they have these issues of lack of potable water, access to electricity, overcrowding, and social exclusion. This is also, again, the definition coming out from the United Nations. And last 2 days, I think, day before yesterday, we also had the opportunity to listen to a lecture from Dr. Emmanuel as part of our workshop, where we talked about this insecure land tenure system. So, regardless of which definition we have of slum, it can't be argued that such settlements can experience any further decay, because they have already reached the extent that they are beyond description. This is the current situation of what we have. So these issues of slum, how are we going to go about it? Comprehensive approach, analytical approach, systematic approach, all of these things have been done before. So that means we need to think, rethink, and look at it from another point of perspective, how we are going to do this. When you look at statistics in Africa, for example, you can see that in Accra, Ghana, Lagos, Nigeria, Nairobi, Kenya, Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, Johannesburg and Cape Town, Durban, all in South Africa, are home to the world's largest slums. And another statistic is, if we look at this in the world, look at it here, I highlighted the statistics also here, the percentages, about 62% of this slum dwellers are coming from Africa. We just have 35% coming from South Asia, 24% coming from Latin America and Caribbean, and 13% coming from North America. So the area with the largest percentage of the slums is in Africa. So what are the major causes of this? As we heard from the lecture of the Vice Chancellor, one of the problems is uncontrolled urbanization, which we are experiencing in these areas. Then rapid growth, which is also dealing with the rural-urban migration. And this is not going to change, it's going to increase, because in the upcoming years, the population of the urban cities is going to increase and multiply again. So we have to do something about it. This is why we are here in this conference today. We are going to look at many proposals, many issues coming to tackle this issue, or to put in table in a discourse about new proposals of how we should do this. So these slums, if we look at it, it represents a challenge that we have been dealing with, and it demands attention from architects, engineers, policymakers, urban planners, and society at large. This is not something that one group of people is going to say, okay, we are going to solve this issue. No. We have to work together. Another thing is, by understanding the defining characteristics of the slums and the challenges faced by the residents, we can work towards implementing effective strategies. This is why in the workshop we are doing, I was emphasizing on highlighting these strategies: social strategy, economic strategy, environmental strategy, and physical strategies. When we have these strategies, then we can create a framework that can tackle this issue. And the last part is, it is crucial to approach this issue of slums holistically by integrating the social, economic, environmental, and physical dimensions to create resilient and inclusive cities at all. We have had an idea also at the beginning of the workshop what are the resiliency, especially in these slum areas. So I hope we are going to have a fantastic session and we are going to learn a lot from this conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleague. I would like in this moment to introduce the keynote speaker. In this case, the keynote speaker is Professor George Jauregui. George Jauregui is originally Argentinian architect, but working for a very long time in Brazil, and more specifically in the city of Rio de Janeiro. Professor Jauregui is an important reference in the world about the informal settlements, I would say, for slum areas in the South America, and especially in Rio de Janeiro, where he has built more than 20 projects for regeneration of different favelas, which is the name of the settlements in Brazil, as well as other proposals and projects and developed either in the Central America as well as other countries in the surroundings. He was awarded by the Watch Award by Harvard School of Design in such moment as a recognition of this important contribution for this kind of, I would say, different ways of understanding the cities. And because of his life always regarding this important topic, and even because of his contribution just now during the last week in a summer workshop we have been doing during these last days in the International University of East Africa regarding this topic, we thought of the possibility to invite him to come here. So it's my pleasure to introduce this professor, and we are preparing now the presentations for doing that. Thank you very much, Professor. The floor is yours.
To this international conference. Thank you to Professor Jose Madrigal in the university, East Africa University, convocating people of different countries and traditions. This question of the tradition is very interesting to me. Especially, I am interested especially in the relation between East Africa and the African heritage in Brazil. That implies cultural heritage, artistic heritage, religious heritage, and music, dances, colors, and a lot of energy. This is the more important question to me that we can compartir. Share. That we can share. And to share two specific form of the urban. What is the urban? This kind of thing, this word, urban, that implies, for example, construction traditions and determines forms to occupy the territory. Specific forms, very different between one country and other country. progress in the different devices for climate regulation and adaptations, that today is a very hard question in the world. Finally, as a fundamental question, the relation between nature that we can call at this name, at this moment, on the history of the humanity, that need to be totally rethinking our idea of nature. What is nature today? Specifically too, for related with this, all that I said, for all the reasons, the question of the ancestrality related with this is a central question, because there are knowledge forgot in the history that we need to retake today, to relate nature with human beings, other life beings, and this nature. So I will be starting now, showing some images related with this question that I talked. The central question to me today is this: red and green. The relation between the red and green. For what reason? For the reason that what we need to from now on is to merge red related with social justice with green, recovering all of the environment through the inputs of responsible public policies, uniting the agenda of social justice with the economic and environmental agenda. This is the central question. And what are our current challenges? Are these the environment, the economy of the common good, and the sustainable urbanism, the intersection between these three issues, seeking a balance between the needs of citizens, both social and economic, and the needs of nature. From the modernity until now, the threat over the earth was brutal, destructive. We need now to search for a threat lightly on the head. I can say in Portuguese, pisar más leve sobre la tierra. It's a good phrase in Portuguese. Vamos. Próximo. Well, the socio-spatial is very complex. Is related with the concept of complexity. What involves the concept of complexity to permit, to give conditions of understand the complexity of the socio-spatial. This intersection, this is magma, is a magma, this intersection, the magma of the socio-spatial contemporary cities, our cities, in all countries, in developing, etc., that need the many disciplines well, no funciona, don't work, yeah, no sé. Well, we need the many disciplines. Psychoanalysis, for what reason? For the question of the listening of the demands is the unique discipline, the unique field of thinking that can help us to understand what implies to
listening the demand. For this reason, the psychoanalysis. Philosophy. For what reason philosophy? Philosophy because the concept of rhizoma, fold, smooth space, striated space, etc., are elaborated only by philosophers. So we need of this concept. And from specific, the architecture and urbanism, the scheme of reading of the structure of the place, the thing that we are doing in the workshop, exactly now. And all the engineering, the geo-environmental questions, sociology, legal aspects, socio-political issues. This is the magma of the socio-spatial contemporary condition. This is the first favela that we showed, Rocinha, a big favela with 100,000 inhabitants, with a big centrality here and other centralities distributed along the territory. Vamos. No. In this favela, in Rocinha, this is in the housing nucleus that create the only space that exists in the favela, this square, and the building between spaces between them for conviviality of the residents. Constructed is this, a prefabricated structure of column, dalles, and beams, recovered with traditional bricks colored. This is the square, the only square of the favela, in which each mom or mom or father can control his sons here. Other project in Rio for the Olympics in 2016, a new neighborhood in the port area, outside of the port area, using this type of architecture to reduce the consume of the energy, a green architecture, Proxima. That is this, using this brise-soleil system that is a question very important in the traditional modern Brazilian architecture, a form of expression of the architecture, the pilotis, the free area crossing by the pedestrians, and the apartments on top. Complexo de Alemán is other big area, 80,000 people, inhabitant, 13 favelas configuring the complex. Vamos yendo. This is the scheme of reading of the structure of the place of the Complexo de Alemán. 13 favelas with his centrality each one, the relation with the context, the condition of access, the streets, the centralities, all that is needed to register, to can say that we understood the place. And to understand the place is the first step to initiate a project. This is in this favela we put the only telepheric that exists in Brazil that have 3.5 kilometers with 5 stations connecting with the train line all the favela and constituting each station as specific centrality in the previous context. This is the system installed, functioning, the houses and the telepheric. This is the nucleus, the housing nucleus of Alemão. 3,500 units with a football field, the center for capacitation of the people of all the favela, spaces for the children, spaces for young people, spaces for older people. With this type, here too, the prefabricated, complete prefabricated structure, even the stair, escalera. No, volví atrás. Yes. Even the steps are prefabricated, and you can look that the human scale is the measure of the space. There are the use of prefabricated elements. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The use of prefabricated elements of the structure not implies a brutal presence in the context. No, can be friendly. Can be friendly. This is a project in Argentina, in Neuquén. Two big lands here. It's a place in which have a very cold climate. Dale. Well, pasó, no aparece. This is in Dominican Republic, Domingo Sabio. Vamos. Vamos. This is other big favela outside of the Osama River here and outside of the historical center of the Santo Domingo city. And in this image, you can look all the mobility system with a hierarchy, first, second, third dimension of streets to pass public transportation, private cars, and other things, bicycles, etc. And the more important question was the project was one linear park over the river to eliminate the problem of the hurricanes all the years. This is the scheme of this favela. Here is the metro and the telepheric. Here is the river, the Osama River. Here, the park, projected park, and all the public equipments introduced by the project. Secondary school, primary school, kindergarten, commercial buildings. Dale. This is the image of the park, projected and constructed park now. Sí. Projected and constructed park now. Dale. This was during the construction of the park. Dale. This is the park constructed now, and I am working on the other side at this moment, on the other side of the river, to make the same thing, to urbanize, to construct other park on the other side, and to solve the problem of the hurricanes. The first project was this, that is constructed. We are doing this now on the other side. Vale? This is the first step of the other side project that have a green tunnel here all the along the street, but no street for cars in velocity. Cars with a controlled velocity, bikes, and principally pedestrians with sporting areas, boat recycling for a public piscine, many other things, and introducing in this project for the first time artistic elements. What artistic elements? Sculpture of the urban scale. Sculptures in wood, sculptures in metal, and sculptures in ¿cómo se dice? piedra, stone, yeah, Proxima. Well, this is a municipio, one municipality of the state of Rio de Janeiro, named Saquarema, in which I worked with 4 ecosystems. The ecosystem of the beach, this is the beach, the ocean, the ecosystem of the lagoons here, the ecosystem of the rural areas here, and the ecosystem of the mountains. All of these crossed by mobility, articulated by mobility. Well, some images, the border of the beach constructed, the kiosk on the beach constructed, the project of a museum, religious museum outside of the existing church. Other image of this constructed part of the beach, the museum, etc. Other favela. Dique, it's outside of the international airport in Rio, and in which here the structure of the project was this crossing between the 2 main streets, totally covered by trees, projected obviously, and the treatment of this space that have exactly the dimension of the water line here in Chihuempe. The 3 meter, 4 meter, and the treatment of the context of this water line. Finally, I am working now from the starting of this year associated with an enterprise of smart city in technology. The concept I used for many times. The smart city implies to reduce environmental impacts, planning, sustainability, resources managers, strategy to have strategies, responsibly urbanism, partnerships, necessary partnership to execute part of the things of the project, social articulation intelligence. This is very important question to me. Promotion of economic development, obviously, always. Integrated management, always necessary, and urban mobility management with social internet. Social internet can be a device, important device to get better solutions and in a consensual form with the community, the government, the NGOs, and other institutions that can intervene in each case depending on the scale of the project. I think that is the last. This is my email, the website and the email. If you have some questions, you can send to me, and someday I can answering, respond.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear Professor George. Thank you for this, I would say, general framework for all of us, and especially for your production and your example of architect looking for these social and economical questions that it is very important in 70% approximately, for example, of our territories here in Uganda when we are talking about populations affected by these problems of infrahabitation. I don't know, maybe if any of you wanted to now we can have a small Q&A time. If any of the audience are interested in asking for some questions before going to another panelist, would be great. I don't know if any of you have. The attendants can come here to be heard by the online attendants, and if not, we will go ahead with the issues. Any questions? Any comments to do? No raising hands on attendance. Yes, please, Dr. Emmanuel. Can you come here in order to be heard even by the audience?
My flu is gone. I didn't have COVID, so we are safe. Thank you, Prof, for your presentation. It was interesting to note that, is it possible to go back to the slide that has the cleaned waterway? Is it possible to go back? Yeah. Okay, as they're still uploading, when you get a chance to work on a project on such a big scale, there are very many pieces at play. You have the people, you have the politics, and you have the habitat or the ecosystem. Okay, so it's interesting, it would have been interesting to know the professionals that you liaised with when you're doing this project and some of the challenges that you faced, because you can't have one cloth that fits all. When you're dealing with the city, you're dealing with people with different needs, different desires, and even the political will is different. So a project like this, I'm certain, involves moving a lot of people, displacing a lot of people. And it involves a lot of community or people acceptance. So in a scenario where you're dealing with a big expanse like this, and at the start it's still a vision, people don't actually appreciate that it's going to benefit them, how were you able to bring the different players on board so that they can accept it? That's one. The second question is, this is a project that I think is rolled out in a couple of years, like 10 years, 20 years, something like that. The financing challenges that came with it. And thirdly, when it started rolling out, what were the problems that it faced with regards to community acceptance and also change of the ecosystem or the habitants that used to be the dwellers or the users of that space? Thank you.
Well, the question of the participation of the people need to take with commas the word participation. What signifies participation today? In each country, when someone talk the telephone to you or the cell and formulate askings and then said, thank you for your participation. Participation is nothing today. So, for this reason, we need to do the mental ecology first. First of all, each word that we take to use, progress, development, environment, all the words are deeply contaminated, ideologically contamination. So, as Deleuze, the French thinker, said, there are three ecologies: mental ecology, social ecology, environmental ecology. And fourth thinker, French philosopher too, said that there are the existential ecology. What implies the existential ecology? implies the revision of all our behaviors in relation of the individual conductas. Yeah, in individual behaviors and social behaviors, together. So, the first question is to take the correct concept for to think. If we don't have concept, we can think anything. The architects not elaborate concept. Concepts are elaborated by philosophers. Science elaborate functions, and art elaborate sensible aggregates. What are sensible aggregates? According with the less, are things made of reason and emotion. These two questions together, reason and emotion, is that an architect need to join. Always. So this is returning to the question of the participation. The participation, to me, I was a political militant in Argentina, and a political technical militant in Argentina, and technical political militant in Brazil, on contrary. To me, participation implies to know, to talk with the people of the places, to walk the places, to talk with each inhabitant, and especially with the community representatives. This is the basic. In the small favelas, it's possible to talk with many people simultaneously during 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But in the big favela, Rocinha, Alemão, etc., it's not possible to talk with all the people. So, for these cases, we have a methodology to ask the people a questionnaire elaborated from our 30 years of experience in this area, in which we demand all the problems and all the questions and all the desires that the population have. So, before the elaboration of the project, I talked by the people, I walked the place, I read the questionnaires, and finally, I can say that I understood the place. Then I can start to think about this, what to do in this place. Second question. Second question. Finance, yeah. ¿De dónde sale el dinero? No.
Where is coming from?
Yeah. Where is come the money? Different sources. First, the government, local government, national government, regional governments like Mercosur in South America, the regional organizations in East Africa, and other Banco Mundial, World Bank. After World Bank, it's not good to take money with the World Bank, but it's necessary. But if there are no other solution, there are many possibilities. Today exists the Bank of BRICS: Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa, and remember other what? China, obviously China, our principal partnership today. So this bank is possible to talk the door of the BRICS and to solicit sirs, I have here a project apoyado por el gobierno, supported by the government, local government, and I want money to execute this. It's a possibility.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, either from the audience or virtual audience? Salvatore Polverino, the floor is yours. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. I think Jorge is not, is left, right? Okay. Dear, I have listened your question. At this moment was obliged to, for some emergency, I don't know why, Professor George, but I have taken notes, and even in your, if I am not wrong, dear Salvatore, I have here one question, which is you would like to listen whether he might have further details on Habitat 2 program. I would say even that if things are running as we expect, for this question of the Habitat 2 program, we will have here Dr. Amanda, which is the chair responsible member of the National Physical Planning of Uganda, and I am sure that she must even report us from others' perspectives. Meanwhile, I would like to ask Professor Gareb to wait for a while, or maybe we are, meanwhile, Professor George is arriving. If not, I would like to follow the agenda. In this case, I would like to invite to Dr. Emmanuel Sinabulia, which is president of the Uganda Society of Architects and lecturer at the International University of East Africa. His presentation, the title of his presentation is Building Resilient Communities, a case of Kalangala fishing sites. So I would like to invite him to come to the podium, and thank you very much for attending this meeting. So Dr. Emmanuel has the floor. The floor is yours. Thank you. Let's wait for a while. Meanwhile, Dr. Emmanuel is giving us the file of his presentation. Meanwhile, I will read you the next interventions we have. There is a problem. At this moment to Dr. Amanda, which is, as I told you, the chairwoman of the National Physical Planning Board of Uganda, and after that, the first panel will be completed by Dr. Ala El-Habashi from Cairo, talking about the specific tools for historical landscape in historical Cairo, regarding always to the topic of the Islams, as well as a paper presented by a team of 3 authors, which is the Master Architect Ekeneme Williams, Dr. Abdul Salam Ibrahim Shema, and Dr. Hasina Nafa from Guinea American University. So please, Dr. Emmanuel, the floor is yours. I will try to organize that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not on. Yes, it's that one. Yeah.
Yes, but not on the side.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good afternoon once again. And according to the different time zones for the others, I'll just say greetings. I've made a twist to my presentation, and I've brought it closer to the city. I'll be presenting about the Chisenyi neighborhood. This is a project I worked on during my master's in collaboration with the students from Makerere University and also from University of Oslo. The topic is building resilient communities, and the case is Chisenyi neighborhood. How do I scroll? And more so to note, as we're still setting this up. Okay. All right. Thank you. The focus on resilience of Chisenyi communities is going to take a fourfold arrangement. And with that, we shall be looking at the resilience of the community. How do we promote resilience? Slum systems and the coping mechanisms that are used in slums, and also the current stand and vision to see the future for these neighborhoods. So in focus, we shall try to understand what do we understand in our context, community resilience. Okay. What do we understand by community resilience in our context? Now, key thing to note that Chisenyi is our largest informal settlement in Uganda, and by default it becomes a slum. However, Kampala alone has close to 65 slums. Now, if you can imagine that Chisenyi is the biggest of them all, and is taking care of about those that are censored, 30,000 adults as residents, you can imagine the extent of that neighborhood. Chisenyi is located, if I'm to take it back from my global scale, it's in Africa, in Uganda in particular, and it's in the capital city, which is Kampala city, and it's one of the parishes in Kampala. Now, when we're talking of resilience in informal settlements, right now resilience is a buzzword, but we have to adapt it or to customize it to a context. And within this, you need to look at the 7 different parameters that guide or govern what is relatable as resilience in informal settlements. And that can take on different approaches. For example, city planning. Where's the cursor? Where's the pointer? It can take on city planning, and that usually takes on the top-bottom approach, and that means you get the authorities or the planners coming, I usually used to say bird's eye view. They come and have, thank you. With the city planning approach, which is the top-bottom approach, the planners come like the birds, with an overview of the city or the area to be planned for, and they say, I think we should put a mall here. I think we should put a road here. I think we should put a park here, without involving the dwellers of that community. And most of the times, with that approach, it gets rejected by the dwellers. And another issue that comes into play is the budget allocation. Most of the times, we come up with these visions, with these plans, with these neighborhoods, without the funds. But then along the way, the funds come into play. But with Chisenyi, it's a different approach, as I'll explain later on. So it takes on the comparative advantage of the funds that are available. Some of those funds may be private funds, others may be government funds, and the needs of the people in that locality. Then when we go to information sharing, this is a continuous cycle. And this can take the approach of what you know I need and what I know I need. I don't know whether that makes sense to you. I may think that I need bread, but when actually what I need is shelter. Or you may think that that community needs shelter, but when we are dying of hunger. So we need to take the two approaches of knowing what do you need and what you know that you need. Then with teamwork, it goes without saying, most of the sustainable approaches that stand the test of time have to take on the approach of self-help. In this, it means empower the people, show them how it's done, then let them continue with it. But if you come and just implement something, implement a neighborhood, implement a system, and then move away, then it becomes a ghost town, it becomes a ghost plan, it becomes a ghost initiative. But when you involve the locality, it takes on a sustainable approach, and also the resources are utilized in a more sustainable manner. Now, documentation can relate more to information sharing, but here, the essence of bringing this up as a tool in resilience in informal settlements, you get to see how a community is morphing, or is growing, or is changing. And you can learn from what you've had as success stories, but also you can learn from the failures. Without documentation, you can't know what has gone wrong or what has been a success story. So that allows you to periodically align your vision and of the community. Whatever plan or proposal has to come up, it has to have actionable planning, and it has to have a life to it. You have to think of who are the users of this community. The users may be the community that resides there, maybe the community that are commuting, those that are coming to work and go, but also the ecosystem involving the plants, the flora and fauna of that area. So with all those taken care of, then you have to think of transferability. This proposal that you're coming up in regards to resilience, can it be rolled out to other communities? Can others learn from it? Can this be adapted into other slums or other informal settlements? Now, with all those taken into consideration, I mentioned that earlier on that we have close to 65 slums in Kampala, and we have close to 4 million slum dwellers. Some of those are commuting, some of those are permanent dwellers, but key thing to note that this accounts for 60% of the population of the city. Now, that shows that whatever plan that we're doing, whatever initiative we're doing, slums or informal settlements have to take on a big role, or a big part, or the lion's share of the meal. So some of the frameworks that govern Chisenyi development, one of them is the land tenure system, the services within this informal settlement, mobility and networks, the community accepting these proposals, and most importantly, shelter. As we said, this takes on 4 million dwellers. And we know Kampala has 7 to 8 million dwellers. So if we have 4 million dwellers, that's a considerable number. Now, I have, what is this? How do I take off? Okay. I have a contextual map that kind of helps us ground Chisenyi within the Kampala metropolitan. This is the Chisenyi precinct or parish, and some of the dots that I've pointed out are landmark areas that you know, but some of them are slums. For example, we have informal settlement in Gaba, Mbuya, Nakawa, we have some in Kasubi, but for contextualization for those that may not be familiar with this area, our university where we're holding this conference, IUEA, is over here, which is close to 6 kilometers from Chisenyi. We have an industrial area on the northern end, which is also close to almost the same distance from Chisenyi. And then we have areas of learning, like Makerere University. IUEA is also an area of learning. We have KIU over there, and then others. So key thing to note that Chisenyi is not only in the CBD, but it's also proximal to areas of learning, which means we have students, we have professors and casual workers. It's close to areas of production, industrial areas, which means we have the local workforce, we have the informal sector that needs not only shelter, but also where some of this merchandise is taken to. But key thing to note is the mobility of this being central to all this infrastructure. Now, if I may interest you with the history behind this, because most of the places have different development history, but key thing to note with Chisenyi, it started out as the colonials or the planners or the Muzungus wanting to get rid of the mosquitoes and the rodents that were coming from that area. It was a wetland, and part of it was used for seasonal farming because other times it would flood, but when it wouldn't be flooding, people had plantations of yams, of sugarcane, of different crops. But then it was also very prone to mosquitoes and rodents. So the planners thought that they needed to come up with a plan of reclaiming that wetland and deal with the rodents and the mosquitoes. So most of the plans that, as I'll share later on, were picked up in this Chibuga administrative planning, were to have warehouses or storage areas or any informal artisan work to be in that area. But as time went on, other amenities came up in the area. In 1954, we had the remodeling of the Nachivubo War Memorial Stadium. We also had the redevelopment of the old taxi park, and that eased on mobility, and also it collected people to that area. So it was not only now a storage area or artisan area, it was also an area that was taking care of mobility, and also amenities like football. So it moved from being a reclaimed area to deal with issue of mosquitoes and rodents, and now it became a focal point or a node for mobility. And that meant that it was collecting people from the different areas in the country. And then later on, other institutions and establishments came up in that place. Institutions like mosques that attracted a different class of ethnicity, low-cost or affordable apartments that was responding to the need for housing for most of the refugees that were in the area, and also dwellers that were coming from different countries. We had Ethiopians, Eritreans, Somalis. So it kept on morphing, as you can see the years with the responses. And now it's taken on a more informal engine in the sense that it's a downtown hub, it's a socio-economic hub, and in that sense, it's a collection of different activities. Now, this map shows the initial extent as of 1999 of Kisenyi. And then the red shows the current extent, planning extent of Kisenyi as of 2019, according to KCCA. The initial one was according to KCC before it became an authority. But if you see, this growth has been just 20 years and is still growing. Over here, this is the War Memorial Stadium, Nachivu War Memorial Stadium. This is, as you see, it's largely green. It's the Lubiri Palace, and that is privately owned by the kingdom. And then, as you can see, areas that have pockets of green are government institutional areas. Like we have Mwanga Court over here. We have, as you close to this side, you have the railway station. So the areas that are still predominantly green are either owned by the government, by Buganda, or by private owners. But then when you go further in, you realize that areas that have a big expanse of single blocks are owned by private developers. We have, for example, Haruna Shopping Arcade over here. That's a private development. And then we have warehouses here by the Kwagalana Group. And then we have apartments owned by the Somali community. So that goes to show you that there's a mix of land tenure system ownership in this area. But then one wonders that if all these are new developments, what has happened to the people that were there before? Now that goes to show you that the land sharing system that has been adopted in this area has taken on a kind of fluid ownership or fluid growth system, in the sense that we have the public authorities that decide the zonal arrangement of the areas, but then we have the occupants of the land who say that this is how we want to use the land. But these occupants are not actually the owners. We have then the landowners who, when someone with sizable funds comes up and decides maybe to put an arcade or a mall there, it's whoever has the biggest funds takes the share. So that now pushes the disenfranchisement or the deconstruction or the demobilization of informalities to become formal, but out of the sync or out of the planning of the public authorities. So you have a mix of developments coming up that haven't been formally approved by the city authorities, but somehow these developments have approvals. So the informality as it is by paper is different on ground, on the sense that these people have planning authority on areas that are not supposed to be used for that zonation. So you have apartments of say 5 stories coming up in an area that has been designated to be warehouses. And then one might wonder that, is it a failure with our authorities for this to happen? Or is it a failure to control the economic arm of this neighborhood? Now, this is the master plan for the zonal planning from the KCCA. As you can see, it has a clearly laid out plan with commercials on the periphery of this master plan. And then you have semi-commercial with commercial and residential on the outskirts as you spread out to the out of the city. And then you have pockets of institutions that of course are privately owned by government, some of them by NGOs, some of them are schools, and some of them are courts. And then you have high residential apartments as you go highland or uplands. But then, as this master plan may look good to the eye, this is the reality. So the question is, how do we get from what's on paper to what's on ground, and we completely ignore what is planned? Is the growth or the land acquisition model? Over here we have Kampala, and the first growth is the planned growth according to the planning authorities. And then the lower one is the homogeneous or informal growth according to the needs of the people or the communities. I think I should zoom in a bit. How do you zoom in? So that I want to slide it this side. I want to move to this. Yeah. This side. Take it this side. No. Okay. Now, from this, we see two models. One is the nice holistic proposal by the planning authorities that the city is going to grow and people are going to move from Kisenyi and go to a new proposed site where they're going to be moved to. And then we create apartments in this place, malls, arcades, and shopping villages. But the reality is people don't skip these other neighborhoods of Natete, Busega, Chengera, and Sanji. They go in a fluid way, depending on how cheap rental space will be, how much will I use to commute from this new neighborhood to where I've been working from. Will my customers know, for example, if I've been making artisans like gates or windows, and I'm moving my casement work or fabrication to Busega, will my people know where I've moved to? Will I get the raw materials that I've been using? Will I have access to power? So it takes on a fluid kind of growth as compared to the planned one. And I think it's important that as planning is going on, it needs to take on the resilience of respecting the natural growth or the natural community response to the growth of a neighborhood. Now, key thing to note that Kisenyi is taking care of 25% of our informalities, and generically, resilience can be looked at as the capability of an organization or a neighborhood like, for example, Kampala, to withstand the impacts of disturbances. These disturbances may be a new developers come up, needs the land, and they're moving away people. Or the disturbance may be political, that this place has a lot of rogues and criminals, we need to move them. Or it may be as it was, to deal with the mosquitoes or the rodents. But then, does that deliver or give capacity of maintaining this place according to the localities? And then there's also the community-led regeneration, where you find a holistic approach to finding out the needs of the people and then developing in that line. And that has to be done in sync, as I gave you the drivers of slum growth. Now, when we go back to city planning, and we try to decipher the top-bottom approach and to see whether it really works, we can break it down to there is emergency planning. There's been a fire, or a construction site has collapsed, and now we come up to say, do we have evacuation paths in case another collapse happens? So we come and say, all roads have to be, say, 7 meters wide. Now that is reactionary planning, emergency planning. And then that at times it's in tune with the main risks that the dwellers are facing. But then we also have planning with line with coping mechanisms. And that may be putting in place solutions that are planning for eventualities that have been learned from other slum dwellers. And then with demographics, I don't have to go further. It goes with the social and economic planning of knowing the population, how it's growing, the different age structures, and how to plan for them. But key thing I want to talk about here is services. Who is liable to providing the basic services? In most resilient communities, the state or the big funder rolls out the basic services like the roads, water, electricity, and then that pulls the people to go into that locality. But without liability to basic infrastructure and job security, people will develop this community according to how best they find to adapt to it. Now, more with adapting to the different drivers of slum development, when we go to working as a team or information sharing, we have resilience that takes on the citizens or the communities of that area, and some of it can be sensitization where you have people going around telling people the benefits of hygiene, of washing your hands, of using a toilet, of recycling. But also, it takes on the approach of the leaders getting involved in doing some of this community cleaning and upkeep. So here we have a model that takes on a fourfold approach, and key thing to note that community and state readiness have to work hand in hand. Now, when we look at conditions of shelters or shelter in an informal settlement like Kisenyi, here we see that with ease to mobility, by pedestrian mobility, footwork, we have about 85% of them thinking that, no, I can move from point A to B easily because I know the locality and I can navigate my way through, even if there's no signage, even if there's no wayfinding. But then you find that mobility by vehicular is only 15%, and that's on the main access roads. So in case of a disaster, in case of a fire or flooding, this place is doomed. When you go to recreational spaces, they'll tell you, the people in these slums will tell you that, no, we have spaces where we can play. But when you go down to find out what they mean by these places, to them every leftover space is a play space. Children make good of any space that's connecting maybe 3 houses, becomes a courtyard for them. It may not be the formal courtyards that we know them to be, but to them, any space where I feel safe, where my mother is watching me, is a recreational space. I can make good of any item to play. Even jumping a stream is recreational for them, as much as it may not be safe. But then when you go to the formal ones, like the bibandas, what in English you might call the locally made cinemas, that's formal in the sense that I'm paying to go there. It has a proper structure. It might even have restrooms or place of easement. But that is taking care of 10% only. And even this 10% is big because Kisenyi is within the CBD. It's close to many other amenities in the area. And then we go to access to toilets. We have paid toilets, but also we have businesses that have been set up there that come with all those amenities. But the number of access to toilets for the informal settlements is not documented because the local leaders are not willing to tell the truth of the deficiencies in the restrooms or the toilets, but also the locals themselves, they're not willing to give you the true information because they don't know whether you're gathering that information to mock them, or you're gathering that information to actually provide the toilets, or you're gathering that information to actually take them away. And then when we look at access to shelter, some of them will say we have shelter, but that 60% of the shelter is makeshift shelter that in any case, any disaster that comes up, that shelter is raised to the ground. Now, with the above mentioned conditions of shelter, when we go to systems in the communities, I'd listed them out, but I want to go to the details, but I would like to just pick up the fourth. Are we willing and able, where appropriate, to work alongside organizations to prepare tailor-made community solutions like land sharing and ownership? Because as much as the dwellers there, the landowners, are not willing to partake in an initiative, it won't be a resilient one. They will fight it. They will come up with their own way of using that space. And as much as we might want to come up with a robust business plan, that let's plan out Kisenyi to be warehouses or shops, if you haven't taken care of the market value in that area, the space needs in that area, then you're just going to have a ghost plan. This image picked here, to some it may look like just a service lane with residentials. But this is a mix of commercial, in terms of shops, in terms of storage rooms. It's a mix of residential. People stay in these places. It's also a mix of institutional. There are schools, small schools within this. In just this one picture of about 8 structures, we have a school, we have a shop, we have a home within this place. So when you decipher just this image, and you think about the number of people who are dwelling in this area, and you think about how they're adapting to this place and how they're using it, then you get to see the dire need of how this place needs to be planned and given resilience. Now, when we look at best practices, as I wind up, the best model will be a proper planned neighborhood with lanes, with green belts and courtyards, and then habitual building heights. But that's not the reality. The reality we have is we have free ownership of land, and people dictate what they do with their land. Even if you have your master plan saying that let us have a row of communal housing, let us have a mix of residential and commercial, let us have courtyards. The reality is we shall have a mix of industry, commercial, markets, residential, all mixed up in this. So how do you strike a balance between your vision and what is reality? By mapping out the reality on ground. You have to know what are the shared spaces. And shared means ownership, shared means activity, shared means belief. You have to look at what are the possible public spaces and what is understood as a public space to the people there. To one, public space may be a plaza. Another person, public space may be a place where I feel safe. And then you have to look at what are the economic activities in these areas. What is going to be the job security to these people? So that if you roll out this area, you're not chasing me from this locality to push me elsewhere. I can coexist with your plan in that area. So this is a model that shows you the acceptance of the different land use activities, the artisans, the public spaces, the housing, and how all these things are mixed up to create a balance and harmony, and that results in resilience. Now, with all this said and done, and all these best practices, how do we move forward? With regards to an umbrella fit-all approach, we need to celebrate the success. We need to see that as much as this place is informal, it is feeding a big population. Many people are residing there. And we need to know that as we try to solve, we can't solve problems on our own. And then when we go to the shelter approach, we need to go with the awareness approach. You can't just tell people that you need to have a toilet, you need to have a separate room for cooking from the sleeping area, without them understanding where you're coming from. So there's a lot of awareness on that part for people to actually accept and also appreciate the needs for adapting to safer living environments. Then we have to be intentional about this. We have to have a roadmap. We have to have timelines. We have to say that by 2040, we have to have access to piped water for all these people. And we have to start walking that path. By so doing, we have to know, why are these people not having access to piped water? Is it expensive? Is it that the infrastructure is not there? Is it that the pressure can't reach that place? Let's look at the approaches that can actually solve problems. Then when we go to best practices, we need to start normalizing resilience, sharing good practices. I tell my students that many of them when they were young, I'm sure they were sending them to the market and they would tell them, when you're going to buy sugar, go to buy sugar. So when he's going to buy sugar, he will sing sugar, 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 sugar. But along the way, if he finds people playing football, he will say, sugar ball, sugar ball, sugar ball. By the time he reaches the market, he will tell the person, mommy or daddy has sent me to buy a ball of sugar. So when he comes back home, he's lost the intention of what he was sent to. So if we keep on normalizing the concepts or the drivers of resilience, it will become part of us. And just like it's part of me to go buy sugar and I won't forget that they sent me for sugar, it will also become normal for us to walk the talk of resilience. And then, of course, it goes without saying that all these things work hand in hand with networking. If I'm cocooned in my own thinking that my solutions are working, and I'm not learning from others, and I'm not sharing practices for others, I may not know that what I'm doing is wrong, and before I know it, I'm doing a plan that is actually not responding to my needs. And I won't dwell more because I think I've gone a lot about all these things. But as we sum it up, all these approaches with regards to community resilience, acceptability, they need to be transferable. We need to have the capacity to improve on the impacts that we have. We need to have the capacity to learn from this and share this so that it's not only one model of adaptability and learning from it, but also something we can roll out to other communities. With that, I thank you all, and I hope that we can have an informal settlement that is self-shaped and is in response to the communities for it. I picked this image in particular. These are slum dwellers, and they're recycling bottles, as you can see here. But they're not recycling them because they are caring for the environment. They're recycling them because of the source of income. It's a job security. So if you're to tell them that pick these plastics because it's safe for the environment, they will never understand what you're talking about. But if you tell them that pick these plastics and earn a living from that, they will accept that. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Emmanuel. I would like to maybe merge some discussions after Dr. Ala, who is now ready for his presentation. Dr. Ala El-Habashi is the next one. I will prepare because maybe you want to share the screen. Dr. Ala is a very important person in the Egyptian scenario of the different actions about slums. As you know, Cairo is, together with Lagos, maybe the biggest mega cities in the continent, and with different, of course, different characteristics. This is why we invited Dr. Ala El-Habashi as one authority about historical, I will say historical areas with slums. This is the reason why he is here, to give us another approach inside the continent from so many different perspectives. Professor, thank you very much for accepting this invitation. The floor is yours, and let's go ahead. Thank you very much. Yes, sure. Everything is running okay. Thank you very much.
other sites in Egypt and Cairo listed as World Heritage, but in fact, that very despite a historic area, historic urban area, and slums is basically what we'll be discussing today. And I chose to do this through the notion of historic urban landscape, which I'm sure you all know, devised by UNESCO in the second millennium, who proposed framework and to manage historic areas. Without further delay, I would like to start the presentation and basically to discuss and to shape things that's happening, as Professor Aziz just mentioned now, across the continental, especially in mega, on the phase of the initiation, international identification. Those are all the three phases that have set to form the technical viewpoint of the profession. So how to public use and that such values do not disappear. And we are all noticing also that the World Heritage Convention is resulted of that particular phase, or the first particular phase, or the first three things. Now, after the 1990s, we are facing quite a shift towards management of historic areas. And that's basically when we have encountered cultural values and cultural aspects to identify notions such as authenticity and integrity in historic contexts, to integrate also all the current mandates of sustainability within heritage domain. So heritage profession is not really looking against the environment or against social integration or against economic development, which are the three pillars of sustainability. In fact, heritage can be one of the very main catalysts of sustainable development. And that's why I'm actually focusing here at the very last set of recommendations that has to do with historic urban landscape, but of course putting that in the framework of sustainability as well as heritage. Now, I'm very honored that in a year before the HUL, the Historic Urban Landscape Recommendations, have been published, I was part of the committee, the UNESCO committee, that talked about such recommendations in Paris. The recommendations and the framework has been published, and in fact, up until today, it's very much struggling to get into the system of the management of urban heritage, specifically in the Arab world, and I'm also sure in all the African continent as well. Mostly because it's not really well understood. And I will explain in a minute why, and that's basically the link between what we call slums and heritage, urban heritage. Well, before we the tangible values towards its own benefits. So what does that mean? That historic Cairo, in its recognition as a World Heritage Site, criteria 6, which is the criteria that I just mentioned right now, basically emphasizing on the fact that community is an inseparable component of the management of the city. And hence a chart that I'm sure you all know about, how to integrate the local community into the framework of management. From informing, which is the basic stage of community engagement, all the way to empowering and partnering the community to manage the urban fabric, especially in an heritage area. And it goes, of course, within all the stages of consultation, involving collaboration, and as I said, to the empowerment. Empowerment, of course, will not gonna be to the all of the number of the community. There will be selected elected personnel, which will be empowered to be representatives into the management of the system, in the system. However, all of the community are abide by at least to be informed, and then the intermediate stages of cooperation. We are very lucky also in Cairo that the city itself has made to the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. And this in itself is that the city does not only live within its antiquarian viewpoint. It's not only about history, value, and that's it. In fact, there are also prospects for contemporary development, for future development as well, based on several recognitions and underlining the fact that the city of Cairo is one of the creative cities in the network of UNESCO in the field of crafts and folk art, which means that those notions which are intangible, crafts, folk art, are embedded within the community, and that can be the catalyst of creation, development. And that's basically what this particular recognition, world recognition is all about. So we have the two components now, the antiquarian viewpoint, which is the World Heritage Convention in 1972, recognizing in criteria number 6, which is about community, and the contemporary status of it being created in the sense of creative development. Now, I'll come back to the notion of what's historic city or urban heritage as opposed to slums. It's all related to the historic case promotion. I'll give some explanation why the 4 tools that are linked with the historic urban. So basically, you need to found those 4 tools into the system. But then, if you start to think about the 4 tools, whether the community engagement tool, knowledge and planning tool, regulatory systems tool, or lastly, the financial tools, all of these are tackling the specificities and the particularities of each neighborhood within the historic city. So, a country doesn't come to us saying, oh, we have all the laws in the world, thus we have the regulatory system. That's not true. You can have all the correct kind of laws, to protect and to develop, but then those laws are not suitable to the particularities of that particular urban fabric, which are basically because they are not following any of those laws, those historic urban fabric. They are categorized, unfortunately, as unplanned or informal, or basically, as you said, as we call it here, slums. So suddenly, we found that the historic urban fabric is basically categorized, right? Why? Because our regulatory system does not recognize such a system of urban fabric or organic urban fabric, or a community that is so engaged in very particular cultural activities that are not well recognized in the modern time. So it's based on historic and identity and very particular identity. So it means to me here that there is a disparity between the way modern management is management of urban fabric is performed, and how to deal with the historic urban landscape, as I mentioned here. So we're talking more about how to make each one of those tools suitable to the case, suitable to the particularity and the characteristics of each neighborhood and each urban fabric. And that's exactly what we're trying to propose here in the case that we are working on, along with the community that surrounds myself and the historic building that I am in, which we call it Beit Yakan, and we basically emphasizing that we do not really do conservation of values for the sake of conservation of values. We're doing conservation of values for the sake of development, for the sake of advancing, for the sake of creative industries. So heritage would be the catalyst of future development, and that's why every single action of conservation in the are basically some contemporary functions, whether on a library, whether a gathering in a court, or working, those are all much needed within the historic city. Also, we have to also face the problem of regulatory systems and all the laws which goes against, for example, built ratios, or the facade proportions, or the colors, or the materials. All of these are on a very large scale and very, I would say, feather level, whereas the particularities of neighborhood are not really specified in such regulations. And that's why we are emphasizing through our activities, through our conservation work, that each particular kind and amount in the world by law. Also for each community has its own particularities in terms of activities, in terms of economic basis. This economy is infinite. And it has to be somehow formalized within the modern economic system. And we don't really object those kind of informal economy, which is basically used to be the economy of the urban fabric itself. So in emphasizing on the notion of building facilities so that we can be eco and we can also advertise for biodiversity, integrating all sorts of greeneries, but also other types of lives besides the human beings into the historic city. You know, all of these has to be done along with the community itself. You know, promoting, for example, a water dispensary that used to be set at every corner to drinking water, not only for human beings, but also for dogs and cats. You know, so basically, those are we learn from our ancestors, whether to select the best genres and of greeneries, but also to treat pets and animals within the urban fabric. Also, alternative energy. You know, so there are lessons to be learned from the historic facts that, for example, all the garbage of neighbor needs to be treated within the neighborhood itself. You know, so basically, even if it is not going to be cycled or used, it goes to the public bath in order to operate its furnace and to heat the water, but then it resulted in order to make our hydraulic in the construction hydraulic. So this is the kind of recycling of the lessons learned. But then we have now other type of alternative energy also that we can encounter to combine the historical time. This is based proposing in order to make the city zero energy as it used to be, or zero solid waste as it used to community integration. Also to provide a green corridor as it used to be also in the history of the city. So all the city was based on a design on an axis that is north-south to catch the breeze, the preferred breeze. Of course, with the urban development, such axes have been blocked and no longer been active. So only in the surrounding of our building, which is basically delineated here with the blue plot or the blue circle, we are emphasizing on the fact that to reintroduce the green corridor once more, the north-south green corridor, with its variety of greeneries, spaces, and its implications on how to reduce the energy consumed in every single project. We have around 22 properties as it shows here in above, and we will see how can it the electrical consumption we can do good for not only for the community but also for the environment itself. How to integrate the community in learning and actually knowing their heritage language, not only to see it as aesthetically beautiful, but also the meanings, and also using those meanings for economic benefits, for producing new elements that are needed in the society, but also for cultural tourism as well. How to celebrate our traditional celebrations and to make those as an part of the identity of the city and not to be ashamed of. In fact, those traditional celebrations are what makes us as human beings living in that part of the city. And that's what makes also tourism being interested about Cairo, not only about historic buildings or monuments, mosques, churches and so on, but also the actual cultural integration of the community with those built fabric. Put up a vision that would be quite avant-garde, maybe it's a dream to connect some poles into the city, such as the Al-Azhar Park from the north to major mosques in the south, and to create a path, but that path would be designed by the community itself, and to devise neighborhoods, and to bring back the notion of closed neighborhoods as a unit to manage the city with all of its activities, whether the gastronomy, the cultural activities, crafts, and so on and so forth. It depends on the particularities of each one of those neighborhoods. But again, when we come back and talk about historic urban landscape, it's all based on the particularities of that particular neighborhood. And that's basically to bring back the city, the scattered city that unfortunately was somehow tasteless, because we're trying to unify codes, we're trying to unify laws all over the city, even if they're not compatible, but if we bring back the notion of particularities of each neighborhood, we can bring back the city together in an active manner in order to be productive and to be also creative. That's exactly what we're proposing here, is to use those tools, even if they are very flexible, even if they are not really well defined, but actually this is actually a pro, not a con. It's an advantage to be such a flexible framework that can be adapted to the particularities of each neighborhood. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be sharing my thoughts in the discussion as well.
you very much, dear professor. Let's go to the coming presentation. In this case, I hope that Master Architect Keneme from North Cyprus is ready. Can you please stop for sharing us? Exactly. Thank you very much. I don't know if I must ask for the virtual attendance if it's with us. Williams Keneme. Okay, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you. This is a presentation, this is a paper authored by Williams Keneme, Dr. Abdul Salam Shima, as well as Dr. Hasina Anafa from Girne American University. I give you, I think you have the possibility to share with us your presentation. So the floor is yours, please. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Hello everyone. Thank you for giving me to share the title of the paper we worked on, Slum Updating, Social Sustainability Approach. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we are hearing not very good, but can go ahead, please. And even enlarge the image if you can, given the presentation mode.
Okay.
Yes, please. Not really. Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So the title of the article we worked on is Slum Updating, Social Sustainability Approach. And this presentation takes part introduction, research methodology, social sustainability,
Sorry, Mr. Williams, we are not hearing so much well. Maybe some problems with your microphone, maybe? Maybe.
Let me. Is it better now?
Yes, it's okay. It's better now. Please, go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, before I talk about is providing a short definition about slums. What is a slum? Now, Cities Alliance defines a slum as an area in the city where people live in inadequate housing and lack access to basic activities. Some defining characteristics of these slums include crowding, poor sanitation, lack of access to basic amenities. Basic amenities is drinking water, drainage infrastructure, schools, health centers, and other facilities. The purpose of this article was to try to examine some slum updates that have been initiated in Africa, and especially focusing on one that was implemented in our study area, Bariga. Bariga is a district in Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm trying to use this study to determine the effectiveness of slum upgrading projects in Africa, and also how social sustainability, which is our proposed approach, can lead to more positive or more successful slum upgrading projects in the future. Our research methodology employed was a mixed methods research to collect primary and secondary data. We collected primary data from our study area, Bariga, through some semi-structured interviews we conducted with some residents in the area. And our secondary data we obtained through a literature review of existing literature or scholarly research that had been conducted in the field of slum upgrading in Africa and in Nigeria. The aim of this is to try to develop a comprehensive understanding of the concept of slum upgrading and social sustainability in Africa. Slum upgrading is the process of improving the physical, social, and economic conditions of informal settlements. This process would involve including the difference with the thing that makes slum upgrading is it differs from other interventions in slums due to the fact that it doesn't involve demolition or the usual method of slums, but rather involves improving the conditions of those slums. And a crucial feature or a crucial defining characteristic of slum upgrading is community participation. It involves the inclusion or the consultation of the residents, the people who are the stakeholders who are affected by the project, involving them in a project implementation process. And in this article, we studied 4 slum upgrading projects that have been initiated in Africa in the last couple of years. One of them was the Building in Partnership Participatory Urban Planning Project, which was initiated in Kenya, in Kitale, between 2001 to 2004, and the Kenya Slum, which was initiated in 2004. The Dakala Metropolitan Development Project, which was initiated in Tanzania in 2015 and 2020. The Lagos Metropolitan Development Governance Project, which was initiated between 2002 to 2013. And we tried to do a tabular collation or analysis as proposed by the organizers of the project. The proposed objectives, the strategies they employed at implementation, the outcomes that were reported by the project, and try to meet how the method of implementation and the analyze and see what we can take away from this project and how through implementation they were able to achieve positive or fairly negative outcomes. And what we did, the level of implementation is a very key element in the extent of productivity or the outcome, the positive outcome of a slum upgrading project. Some of these projects recorded more significant outcome than the others due to issues that we catered to. Or is there a problem?
It seems that there are problems with your communication. I don't know if the internet from your side. Are you hearing me well, please?
Yes, I can.
So, I don't know, in such moment it seems it's too slow. If you can go ahead, I will thank you very much.
Okay. I think it's my internet probably. So we were able to deduce and from this 4 projects. The Brundtland report defines sustainability as meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And within the concept of sustainability, there are 4 main components: the economic, the environmental, and the social. And within some circles, there's also a 4th component, the cultural, but that's not been officially recognized by the UN. Social sustainability is the aspect of sustainability that deals with people, and that's the aspect of sustainability they are interested in this article. Now, social sustainability is made up of 4 main social system components, the physical component, the environmental component, the economic and social component. The physical component. I'm sorry, is my audio better now?
Yes,
or is it same as before? Okay. The physical components comprises the physical infrastructure, built environment generally. The environmental component covers issues around the management and maintenance of the natural environment. The economic component refers to the economy of the area and distribution of resources within the community. And the social component deals with social issues around social equity, cohesion, human rights, and inclusion. Our study area, Bariga, is a district in Nigeria, and that's the place we wanted to focus on within the scope of this study. Lagos State is the most populous state in Nigeria, and it's in some circles it's seen as the economic center of Nigeria, and because of this, there's an increased or a greatly accelerating rate of urban migration to the city. People looking for better job opportunities, better standards of living. And the problem with this is this rapid urbanization rate has not been met with and also increased issues around housing and facilities to deal with this influx of people. And because of this, it's estimated today that 7 in 10 Lagosians live in slum communities. Bariga district is a local council development area in Lagos State, Nigeria, and it is the home of the oldest secondary school in Nigeria, the same as grammar school. But unfortunately, today it's home to one of the worst slums in the state, and it's a slum that is not only characterized by poor standard of living, it also has a very high crime rate. And in the Bariga district has previously been a beneficial slum upgrading project that was implemented by the World Bank in 2005. Lagos, in 2015, the Lagos Metropolitan Development and Governance. But it's a project that recorded some outcomes based on the World Bank project report. And the challenge of slums in Bariga district is the challenge that most slums in Nigeria face, the lack of access to basic drinking water, sanitary facilities, issues around flood and waste management systems, and lack of access to basic amenities. The residents in the area themselves, as we see, adopted their own strategies to try to deal with this problem. For example, to solve the issues around flooding and bad roads, they dump their refuse on the road to try to fill the potholes. But this aggravates the problem because you find that when the rainy season comes, it damages the road and it causes more problems because there are no efficient waste management systems, there are no efficient drainage channels, there are no efficient road networks. And so we try to propose a slum upgrading project in Bariga through a social sustainability approach and try to show what the components of social sustainability can holistically capture the problems faced in slums. A slum, for example, like the one in Bariga district, a component of social sustainability will cater to issues around the built environment, the issues around the power supply in the district, the road network, and the flooding issue. The transport and mobility will cater to issues around the poor road network, the lack of an efficient transport system, and try to create validate the existing transport systems and try to also create an efficient road network. The environmental component will deal with issues around the environment, health. Presently, there's slum development in the district. In Lagos State, generally, there is encroaching into the shoreline, and this environmental component would cater to such issues, trying to create awareness among the residents on issues around preserving biodiversity, preserving their particular, preserving the shoreline. The subcomponent air and water quality would cater to developing measures to tackle air and water pollution and providing accessible and portable drinking water, and also the issues in the districts around waste disposal. Waste management and disposal subcomponent would facilitate the development of an efficient waste management and disposal system to solve the issue of indiscriminate waste disposal currently in the district. The economic component to cater to issues around the fair distribution of wealth and power. For example, in Bariga district, there exists a hierarchy of power presently. There are chiefs and there is a village head. So an issue around this would consolidate on that existing structure and try to empower these people in authority to promote the equitable distribution of resources, of wealth, of power, and all those critical resources that are required by every member of the community. Now, the social component will cater to issues around social equity, cohesion, inclusion, and human rights in the district. The social cohesion would cater to issues around strengthening the bonds in the district, trying to promote or propose activities that would increase or improve the relationships within the district and try to preserve the general fabric of the area. And inclusion will cater to involving every member of the project, as we observed in one previously implemented slum upgrading project, including every member of the society in the slum upgrading process as much as possible. This could be through conducting citywide surveys or town hall meetings to get the opinion of everyone. So whatever project is implemented will be fully representative of the general population. And then the subcomponent of human rights would cater in towards sensitizing the residents on their rights, on their liberties, and preservation of law and order in the district. So we tried to show that social sustainability as an approach to slum upgrading would provide a very holistic, a wide, multi-perspectival approach to slum upgrading. Not only by the district, but general slum upgrading in Nigeria and Africa. But we tried to show how a implementation of this approach in Bariga district and showed how it's captured all or most of the problems faced by the residents of the districts, because slum development is a complex issue that requires a multifaceted or a multi-perspectival approach. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much.
I will stop.
Yes, can you please stop shading with us? Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. So it's time, we are a bit delayed. We will compress a bit more the timing. So our guest lecturer, Dr. Amanda, as far as I understood, is here just now. So we will do a small pause of 5 minutes and we will come back. We will not cut in any case, but around 5 minutes that we need to have a pause here for all the audience here at the university, and we come back in these 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's on the flash. This is the flash. This is the so what do you see? Because it's on flash. So where is our thing? Okay, I think we're going to pick it.
Yeah, you can put Bluetooth so that you can connect the speaker. With this one.
Because I talked to her, she was at the reception. Then I sent everything. Which was it.
That's it. Which one? You connect the speaker with the Bluetooth? You don't need this one. No, it's easy. Yes, turn on the Bluetooth. Make a connection to me. Yes, I know that too, right?
Well, we are back, dear virtual audience and dear audience here at the university. For me, it's a special pleasure to introduce Dr. Amanda Gavirano, which is the chairperson of the National Physical Planning Board in Uganda. And thank you very much for accepting the invitation, dear doctor. The reflection is titled Mobility, Accessibility and Land Use. In the end, this presentation, in my opinion, is merging the 2 days sessions. She is urban planner initially, but very, very engaged with the problems of accessibility and transportation. So she will do a speech, I would like to invite her to come here. And thank you very much for staying with us and sharing this time. Please, Dr. Amanda, the floor is yours. After that, Dr. Manlio Michieletto will present from the German University in Cairo, as far as I can imagine. Thank you very much. It's better from here. Because we have here the camera, and we have the audience there too.
When you are a guest, you always have to follow instructions. Yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm really sorry. I'm coming from northern Uganda, and those who have not been there know that it's very far. And the ones who have been there know that it's no longer that far. So my name is Amanda Ngabirano. I teach at Makerere University. I teach urban planning. These days it's called urban and regional planning, because when the urban was emphasized, the rural was forgotten. And the future of the urban is rural. So we changed the name of the program to urban and regional planning. So my interest indeed is transport, mobility, because without transport, nothing happens. Without transport, coming here would be impossible. Without transport, you wouldn't be here, actually. So transport is a very serious aspect of growth and mobility. So that's why we think that we need to emphasize the aspect of transport in growth and in planning. Is everything okay? No, it's okay. All right. So the first aspect I would like to talk about is the land use. When we are doing land use planning, I think we need to think about people, because people have various categories, various classes, various interests, and socio-economic aspects. So land use will definitely be different. So you'll need housing for the poor, housing for the middle income class, housing for the rich, and you need housing for other things. So human settlement is like the most dominant land use in the world, which determines how mobility should be. So once you have those different land uses, you need to factor in how people access them. The shops, the markets, the schools, the public health. Imagine a kid from a rural school spending 2 hours walking to school. I mean, that's a land use location issue, and it has an impact on accessibility. So land use and housing, land use and transportation must be dealt with at once. Let's not make this mistake, and I see your recording, so I hope this can come out to the public, that if we just deal with houses, we shall not have places. Because buildings don't make places, but accessibility and mobility is what we need. The second thing which I wanted to share with you is the aspect of parking. You know what parking does to cities and countries? It destroys roads and places, because people are looking for parking. Parking is almost never planned for. That's why you see we have on-street parking issues. Why should people park on the roads? So parking has been forgotten in terms of land use and mobility. People are stuck. And you see, that's why people want to go to shops with their cars. They don't even want to walk a few meters to the place where they have to be, because they want to park exactly where they are going. This is terrible. It's a design issue, but it's also an attitude issue, mindset of the people. Can you walk when there's traffic? I was telling someone who helped me here that I wished I had my bicycle today. I would have parked the car and rode, because the cars were not moving. But I didn't have it, you know, so I enslaved myself, because you get freedom, you get liberty. But if I had where to park, probably I would have parked and walked, even if I didn't have the bicycle. So parking is very critical, and it should not be informal. This is the informality in the system, because you can park anywhere, at Shell or City Oil, wherever. But you have to pay for that parking. You know what I mean? It's not for free. How do you pay for that parking? Remember, I'm a teacher, so I need an answer. You pay the askari, 1,000. Thank you for keeping my car. It's a parking. It's a simple issue, but it has to be dealt with in design, and it's an informality aspect. Recreation. This is another thing that has been forgotten. Recreation is where people go and sit, relax, get entertained, and it brings people together. You know, a city or a country, when the social fabric is not intact, is completely vulnerable. So you need all those land uses that connect people. Recreation is one of such land uses, that the poor, the rich, the old, the young, the women, the boys, the girls, they all come. So do we have such places for recreation? This is something that we need to emphasize. And it also requires good accessibility. If you know the best spots where recreation should be, it's a very good idea to propose the right location. If you put a recreation facility along the expressway, how many have been to the expressway? So if you put let's say a park, a children's play area, do you think that it will make sense? No. So recreation, accessibility, location, those are very serious issues. And the business people have to be guided, because for them they have the money, but they may not know what to do. So the professionals have to play their role and guide the investors for the investment to make sense. The other thing that I want to talk about is the public transport. I don't know what you know about public transport. Because sometimes we are talking about public transport, but people don't know what it means. Who knows what it means? What is public transport? Okay. General public can have access to the use of it. Someone wants to add on that? Yes? Readily available for everyone. Another one, any addition? This is really nice. I like it. I don't like to speak to myself. Only priests can do this. And the church pastors, or whatever we call them. Any other? Yes? Someone else? What else? Readily available to the general public? I need about 4. What makes public transport public? Should be cheap. Okay, that's good. I will talk about that. It's like you want to say something. It's not profit oriented. Is that what you want to mean, or like? Yeah. I'm missing a lady. You know, I'm so gender sensitive. My ladies, where are you? What is public transport? So, very good. Yes. He's not a lady, he's a gentleman in a red tie.
From my little knowledge of economics, when I hear the word public, another term comes into play, and that is non-exclusivity. So you have a public good that is accessible by everybody, and no one has exclusive rights, for example, over, but it's everybody is inclusively, right to use.
Very good. So you all have an idea. Even the ones that remain silent, I know, they know what it is. You have to have access to it. It should be affordable. It's a public service, and public transport should provide for higher carrying capacity. It should not be really small carrying capacity and you call it public. 2, it should have a fixed fare. You should have fixed stops. You should have terminals. Plus, you should have a ticketing system, which is formal. If you are coming from, let's say here, and you're going to Kamwocha, how do you move? You need one ticket, right? You might have to go through maybe Mbuya, Spear Road, no, what's the name of that road? Spear Road, where Spear Motors is. Stretcher Road, thank you. Stretcher Road, connect to Ntinda. So you need one ticket. How do you connect? Is there a taxi from here to there? How much do you pay? You can't plan your trip. So the system we are having is informal. And I saw that you have this informality in the middle of this discussion. So the best thing to do is to have a system that is integrated. So you have land use integrated with transport, but also the different modes integrated with each other. So you can use, let's say, you can walk, take a bus, or take a boda, take a taxi, or maybe take a train. Have you used the train before? He's laughing. Have you used the train? Who has used the train? How was your experience? It is nice. And many people in Kampala don't know how that train system works. And 1,500, sorry? I don't know. Either it's the users or it's the... Sensitize you about what? When there is a need. So this system, you will see men dressed up like the professor running in ties to catch the train. And it's so affordable and it's fast. You will spend, how long were you taking? No, I'm talking about our train system here. Okay, but still, the one that you used, how was it working for you? Very fast, So this kind of arrangement now, who has used the one over here? How was your experience?
Like you said, you have, you don't have class. It's men in suits and women from market. They're all scrambling for the same train. And it takes a few minutes for me to trek from the urban center to Greenway, for example. About close to 15 minutes, I'll be there. So it's very fast and efficient and time saving. And of course, the cost bit of it is very affordable.
What about the social aspect? Did you interact with people that were traveling with you?
I met some people I have not met for about 6 years.
So this is what public transport is supposed to do. Exactly what he's saying. Interact with people, pay less, be on time, move without any stress. If it has Wi-Fi, you can work. If you have your laptop, you move while you're working. So public transport, actually, we don't have public transport. That is the fact. What public should be is not. But we have a very good starting point that we have public transport, which is informal. Taxis, 14-seater capacity. They decide which route. They take you where they want. You pay what they want. You can negotiate. They stop where they want. What else? Taxis. They can overload. You carry someone while you're moving. You can put your chicken on top. Even you can sit with chicken in the taxi.
They can decide to take different finals.
So they choose the route, you know, because I had my brother in Boyogerere. That is 1997. Do you have a time issue? No. We are okay. 1997. Please don't count the years backwards. What? So in 1997, I visited my brother in Boyogerere, but I had to visit my godmother who was in Bukoto. So she told me, my godmother told me, take taxis that are going to Bukoto via Ntinda. So when I reached Nakawa, the taxi changed the route. She didn't go to Ntinda, and my transport was exactly what I needed. So I had to walk. I walked from Nakawa to Ntinda, but I don't know how God works. There is someone that I had never seen for so many years who was driving and saw me and stopped and gave me a lift. So I was going to just walk. I had exactly what I needed. So I arrived late and I told my godmother, you know what? I don't know. I'm never going to come back here again if I don't have my own car. Because that was public transport. You can't plan with it. You have a fixed budget for a week, but you go beyond the budget because you are not the one in charge. And this is something we're trying to help the government to address, plus even the service providers. They are doing a good job, and we want to support them to move from informality to what? To formality. Because it's now informal. It's just like selling vegetables on the road, but people are not vegetables. So we need to organize how people move from place to place, and we need to support these public transport operators. We got 100 buses, Pioneer Easy buses in the country. Who has seen them? Who has used them? You have also used them? No, the orange buses. You have used them. And the system didn't work. Because you're introducing a vehicle in an informal system. A vehicle that should make business, that should run as public transport. So informality is still with us, but we need to professionalize the sector. Right from the vendors to even government systems. If you have small private clinics, that's also informality. It's not only about the vehicles, the small borders. Lastly, there is something we call the last and first mile. Who has heard about this concept? Last and first mile. How is your last and first mile? From home to work, to school, to your friend's place, you have the first and the last mile. This is the reason that informality in mobility is growing very strong. If you need to move from home at 6:30 a.m. and it's dark, right? How do you move? Who is honest and knows exactly what we are talking about? How do you move? 6 a.m. You want to leave home and be somewhere by 7. You must be there. Maybe it's a job interview. Thank you. Because there is no stage. So you have a boda guy's number, right? Maybe more than one. If one disappoints you, the app. 6 a.m. Okay, I have a daughter who is 23, and sometimes she wants to go and meet her friends. So I asked her, how are you going to manage? How are you going to move? She says, I'll take a surfboard. But there is when the app is not even working. That is informality. But there is this other one reliable person in the system who will always be there. Just a direct call. That border guy. He always comes. So I think that informality is helping Africa. I cannot imagine if we didn't have places for the poor, places for opportunities. I don't even call it for the poor. It's places for affordability, for convenience. And in urban planning, we call them receiving areas. They receive people. As you grow, you need to have some informality. It is everywhere. The ones that don't have it, life is too hard for those who cannot afford the formality. So that's why Uganda keeps winning those awards of being the most friendly country. Kampala is chaotic, it's the most friendly city, because informality is providing opportunities to people, you who is moving and the person who is moving you. But we need to do something to correct it. So the last and first mile is a trick that people need to connect places. But which planner thinks about that mile? How do you choose where you stay? Do you get directed to there, or you choose and construct where you live? So housing has to change a lot. We have to start telling people, now Chira is full. If you want accommodation, there is no accommodation in Chira. It is this expensive. And we need the architects in this. We need the architects to support us. I'm getting a reflection, an echo of the sound. Do I have to do anything here? It's now okay. So we need to get people to accept the instructions, the changes, and also the livability principles. We are seeing wetlands being encroached upon. Who is doing it? It's not the poor people. It's the rich people that are destroying the environment. So, who is the target? Is it informality for the poor, or it is informality of the rich? If you ask me, Muyenga is more difficult to reorganize than Katanga. And Katanga is no longer that bad. But pick any slum that you know. Which slum do you know? Chi? Chua? They are always having chi, those slums. Soweto? Chiwempe? Kisenyi? Which other one? Chitalanga, huh? Yeah, you know that one. Then another one? Chinawataka. There is Kanyogoga. There is Chiwinya. There is Chisuwera. There is Chibwa. Have you heard of Chibwa? Who knows where Chibwa is? They will all deny. But all those are areas that are receiving people. So what do we do with those areas that are receiving people? And you know, they are not so far from big things. So those small houses, you can easily fix them. Architect doctor will tell you that we call them soft areas because we can easily regenerate them. But Muyenga is a hard area. How much are you going to pay in comparison?
And this whole comprehensive vision, and especially to understand even, you know, these hidden relations sometimes between transportation and between, between the slum areas and so on. The presentation arose so many topics to be discussed. I would like now to understand better if we have at least 5 minutes to try to Q&A. I know that in some cases, the last intervention was so, I would like to tell you, so local, and maybe people from other continents, even at this moment, we are not really, well, not really in the language and in the knowledge of the different areas, but in any case, it was very, very interesting. So I would like to know if there are from the attendees or virtual attendants, or maybe from the real one, if we have any questions to arise. Please. Can you come here, because if not, the virtual audience is not seen, and they are not hearing even. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. My question goes to, because our topic was dealing with slum reclamation, basically Chiwempe. So we have talked about a lot of things, but in my perspective, one reason as to why slums grow is rural-urban migration. So I don't know how the administration deals with this, because for instance in Chiwempe, you might get someone, maybe came in 2020, then called along the brother, the sister, so they all start sprouting rooms around. So as the administration, what measures are you taking to start tackling with this issue of rural-urban migration, so that when those people, if they are to come, where they are going to dwell is taken care of, or they are prevented from just flowing into the city? Lincoln Mwanzi. Yes.
Oh, wow, thank you so much. My name is Kaguda Robert Peter. I'm a university ambassador and part of this. I want to thank you so much for this opportunity. But then our problem, you're talking about the slums. But in most cases, they always say that prevention can be better than cure. And then instead of us trying to overcome these slums, that we need to push this people off or what measures can be taken into place that these people who are the so-called slum dwellers can still keep in the same areas, let's say the Chiwempe and what have you, but then they're just improving onto the area. As the administration, what measures can we put in place that we leave them stay there, but then improve their standards of